Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our Skills Impact series. I'm really excited today to bring Pat Masterson from Husco to interview with regards to his experience in our generative AI program. Welcome, Pat.
Hi, Ann. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us. We really appreciate it. And I'm excited to hear more about your experience in our generative AI program. So let's just jump into it. First, if you wouldn't mind, kind of introduce yourself to us and share a little bit more about your background.
Sure. My name is Pat Masterson, and I'm the Vice President of Global Supplier Quality here at Husco. We're based in the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. I've been in manufacturing for about 25 years. My background is in mechanical engineering. I worked in engineering operations, quality, and for the last 4 years have been in our supply chain organization, specifically working with supplier quality with our suppliers around the world. Husco is a hydraulics valve and controls company, and we've been around for about 80 years.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining our program. We love to see that, individuals with extensive backgrounds are also finding value in the programs that we bring, which kind of leads me into my second question, which is what led you to join our Generative AI Skills Accelerator?
Yeah, I've known the gener8tor team for about 8 years, and I have experience working with gener8tor on the startup accelerator side and have spent a lot of time in innovation, reviewing startups, and have gotten to know your gener8tor team very well over the years. Really impressed with the work that Troy and Joe have done and the team that they have built. And I was connected to Danny Remick last year, and she reached out and extended an invitation to join this Skills Accelerator. And it was really perfect timing for me because I had spent a lot of 2024 looking for AI use cases in supply chain, specifically in manufactured supplier quality. And I was having a hard time finding it, to be honest. I went to conferences, talked to consultants, podcasts, YouTube, TED Talks, and I was really struggling to find practical applications of AI that I could bring back to my team and make our team here at Husco better.
Wow, the extensive spaces that you looked is impressive, and we feel really honored that you were able to find that in our program. That's a shout out actually to our partnership with the Bay Area Workforce Development Board, where when we spoke with them about developing kind of a specific generative AI program, they asked us to do one for supply chain and logistics. And so I love to kind of hear how all of these dots get connected, and then ultimately we launch a program, and it actually is impactful for the individuals that are looking for it. So tell us a little bit about your experience in the program.
Yeah, I'll start with actually I had a little bit of apprehension when the invitation was extended to me to join. I haven't taken a class in about 15 years, and so I'm an engineer. I have an MBA. I've studied Six Sigma and Lean and lots of different things over the years, but I haven't taken a formal class probably in about 15 years. And I just had to get over myself and do it. And it was it's manageable, and I know we'll talk about that, the curriculum a little bit later. But it's intense, and there is a little bit of a learning curve that you just have to keep up with. Um, and so for me, it was how can I learn? How can I overcome that fear of the unknown, just not knowing what AI could do for us in a manufacturing business. We're an international manufacturing company. We have factories around the world. My team specifically works with 200 suppliers in 20 countries.
Wow.
And so we are always thinking about how can we do things better, better internally, better processes, better coaching and development for our suppliers, and better service to our internal customers at our factories. And the other piece of this is from a leadership standpoint. I think we've really just started scratching the surface here at Husco in 2024 and now into 2025 and 2026 with what can AI do for us.
Mhm.
And so I really think that there is, if you think about it from a leader's standpoint, you really need to know and have some examples and actually get your hands on the keyboard and try it before you can share that and make it part of your strategy at your organization.
Yeah.
And that was a big piece of why I did it was I can't learn and teach and coach something I really don't know anything about. And so I just wanted to be the first one in our group to learn. And myself and one of my colleagues signed up for the course, and it was pretty eye-opening for me. And I think the thing to know, like when I look back on the class, it didn't teach me how to be like a coder of AI, but it taught me about the possibilities. And I think we as leaders in whatever organization we're in, we have to understand that AI is changing so rapidly that we have to keep trying. We have to keep prototyping. We have to keep putting challenging goals out there for our teams to really learn and develop and figure out like what the future could look like.
I appreciate your response in so many ways. First and foremost, your ability to add that you were apprehensive about it at the beginning. I think that that's a really relatable experience that we have a lot of people, whether they're going through our traditional skills program or more specifically for generative AI, because there's so much information out there, but it's not necessarily connected back to context always, that it can kind of develop this fear of like, what is this going to do? How are we going to interact with it? And so you just being able to share that from the beginning, I think is a really big sign of like your leadership style. And to the second point that you brought up, which is the fact that yes, from an AI perspective, what we have also found is that it's really important to get the leaders of businesses first and foremost to kind of interact with these types of tools or again with our course or different programs so that we can see that it's not as scary as we've been made to think, but it's also not as transformative immediately as we've also begin to think. I think that there's this middle space where the rubber meets the road, where it's like you have to learn how these tools actually connect to the work that you're doing in order to use them efficiently, or else you can end up going into rabbit holes too that don't end up, to your point, like making things better or changing things in any way. So I really appreciate, the way that you kind of phrase that and the way that you were able to not only bring yourself to the program, but also someone from your team, because I think that that's also a really beautiful part of our generative AI program, where going to your point about the use case, it really is about the learning that you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's about how does the learning actually impact your work on a daily basis? And is there a way that we can help make sure that after this course, you are able to utilize those tools?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, for people that have a very busy schedule, I travel internationally for work. Many times I'm not in the office or just don't have the ability to be at a physical place for a class. The virtual option that you have developed, the virtual approach that you guys have developed, and the combination of the curriculum, the LinkedIn learning, bringing in some guest speakers who can say, this is what it means in plain English. This is what you need to be thinking about. But also some forward thinking industry experts who will, I think, blow your mind a little bit with some of the
Yes.
examples that they bring. And then pulling all of it together with, for our class, having, a case study or a capstone right at the end to say, what problem can you solve with this, right? And I think that's what leaders need to be thinking about, and that would be maybe a recommendation for people that are either thinking about or have already registered for the next course is think about some of the hardest problems you have in business. I think it's okay to start small, but I would also in another list say what are like three of the biggest pains in our company right now,
I love that.
and I would guess you'll be able to, at the end of this course, maybe break that problem down into a few pieces. And
Mhm.
then how can you start prototyping something? And the neat thing about the class is everyone who is in the class is in the exact same spot. Everybody is just getting started. I think that was a little bit of my fear, that I felt like I was behind. And
Mm.
I came to the class and there were, I don't know, 40 people from many different, it was mostly manufacturing, but many different industries. And I learned that everybody was in the same spot. Everyone was there to learn and share and connect. And I thought that was really, that made me feel at ease from like the first minute of the first class, that there's no expectations. There's no AI industry experts that are taking the class. It's all of us, just organizational leaders that are trying to do better.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for sharing that too. It kind of leads into our second question, which you've kind of touched on, but I just want to throw out there, which was kind of like, what was your biggest challenge that you faced during the training and how did you overcome it?
Mm. I had two challenges. One for me was it was a very busy time for me, and just making carving out time and making the commitment to get through all of the content
Yeah.
was difficult being on the road. And there is a fair amount of content because it's going through a lot of vocabulary that I wasn't familiar with. It talks about some of the history. It talks about governance. It talks about ethics,
Yeah.
and there is a fair amount there. And as leaders, I think we have to spend our time kind of grinding through that so that we have an understanding. We call it here at Husco, we call it kind of the guardrails that we set up when the
Oh,
first
yeah.
co-pilot, first co-pilot license was rolled out. We already had a small team that developed the ethics and said, we're doing this and we're not doing that. This is what's allowed. And this is why we are not going to do these things from a risk standpoint.
Yep.
And so I saw what we did here first, and then I took the class and I said, now I better understand these guardrails that we put up, because there's some content in there that talks about how does an organization even start. Let's say you don't even know what a chat GPT is. I've never logged onto it. Like, literally your course helps people start from that point.
Yes.
So that was one challenge. I would say a more technical challenge during the class. I thought that the integration of the Copilot tools into the Microsoft suite, this goes back to the beginning of 2025, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. I did not find it very useful. I thought it was very challenging. I was getting a lot of errors, and I think it was just part of the learning. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I just had to keep going. I will say though, we're recording this at the beginning of 2026. Microsoft Copilot has come so far. It is such a useful tool. I bet you I spent most of today in Copilot and either coaching, teaching, or sharing or absorbing other people's version. And actually, right after we record today, I'm running a workshop for my team just to get them thinking about the art of the possible for 2026.
That's
And so, yeah, so I think whatever you think about the tools from months ago, don't worry about it because it's probably changed. It is literally changing overnight.
That is such a good point. Absolutely. And I love the fact that you shared that, initially it was hard and it didn't do or say essentially what you wanted it to. And you didn't necessarily know how it was integrative. And then, through our course, but also frankly through the fast iteration of the tech companies that are putting these things out, like to your point, they are changing overnight. And the new features that come through is a lot for all of us to kind of keep up with. But a lot of the interfaces are so intuitive that it's like it just starts to understand, we can start to understand it so much more, and then it is understanding us so much more. So I appreciate that perspective because I think that that's one of the big things where a lot of people feel quote unquote behind, but even when they get started, they're like, I can't ever keep up with this. And that's not the point. You don't have to keep up with it. It will keep up with you so long as you are continuing to use it, to learn it, and to iterate with it.
Yeah, I would agree. And all of the tools are keeping up with each other. And so I would say that there is uh, much more parity around how the tools are performing. 1 year ago, I might have said something different, but I'm getting some really great results, and I'm going from tool to tool to double check my work.
I love
And
that.
I think that is we're a Microsoft shop here at Husco, and that's our primary suite of software products. And so Copilot became a natural extension. We are just starting to understand what it can do for us,
Mhm.
and that's pretty exciting.
That is super exciting, and Microsoft is one of our partners as well. And we're really happy to hear that not only are the trainings that we're providing that do incorporate Microsoft tools, but also other tech agnostic tools as well. But that again, at the end of the day, it is actually supporting the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. That's the holy grail for us, right? Like people can come into training and oftentimes they walk away from it and they don't necessarily ever use it again, or they don't dive deeper into it. And so I think that that was one of the ways in which we designed the generative AI program was to make sure that when you walk away from this program, it is something that you will continue working with on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
And that kind of leads me into my next question, which would be one, I understand there's proprietary information. So obviously, if you can't share with us, we get that. But Could you kind of talk to us about how you have, or excuse me, how AI has kind of changed your workflow? I know one, you just spoke about how you're going to be working with your team to kind of get them to think about what's possible, but any other examples that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, we have a great example, and I give a lot of credit to the generator skills class that helped me kind of conceptualize this. And at the end of the course is this capstone that you guys asked the students to put together. So thinking about, okay, what kind of problem statement could I come up with inside my organization? What kind of problem could I solve with what I have now learned through the AI course, the Gen AI for Leaders course? And the problem statement I came up with was really around the amount of time that my team spends working with and coaching our suppliers. So, like I mentioned before, we have a lot of suppliers around the world, and there is a lot of communication back and forth. And that can be early in product development cycles, it can be right at production launch, and it can be continuous improvement after the fact. A lot of time, we spend a lot of time with our suppliers. It's just we want a long-term partnership. They are doing very custom products and processes for us. And so my proposal at the end of the course was, can I build an AI driven coach for our suppliers specifically around problem resolution?
Ah,
And the next step after that was I brought that to one of my colleagues here inside of Husco. He's our VP of IT, but also a thought leader and really one of the drivers for us to embrace AI more here at the organization. And I shared it with him, and the two of us wrote a proposal actually to Microsoft. And so here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Microsoft built a AI co-innovation lab,
yes.
and they stood that up about in the last 18 months, and we wrote a proposal for my project, and it was accepted in the early part of 2025, and then we ran a project in the summer of 2025, working with the Microsoft AI engineers at that lab, and we went from concept. I actually built an agent to prototype it, and then we built a functioning demo that was up and running by September. And then we tested it with about 5 of our suppliers and got feedback and got enough positive feedback that we put it into production December 1st, 2025. So we have, as of today, we have about 6 weeks of data, and we're getting some fascinating feedback on it. And so inside of a year, I went from I don't believe the AI buzz and hype that is out in the media to I am now, to some extent, evangelizing what's possible and showing as many people inside of our organization what we built. And I would say it was a great team effort. Some of our business development and ERP system team, plus the Microsoft team. And a lot of that comes back to the generator skills to force me to think a little bit differently about how this could work in our business.
I'm literally speechless, although I have to talk because that is amazing. I mean, if you think about that trajectory of like apprehension to ideation to use case of like, could this be possible? And then going to the innovation lab, which is also a partnership with Microsoft and WCTC that Generator is also a part of, to an actual functioning agent that you can use with your suppliers across the world. I'm blown away. That's absolutely amazing. And we're so grateful that you, again, that you came through our program and that you took it so seriously and we're able to kind of continue on with it. Congratulations.
Thanks. It was yeah, it was quite a road to get to where we are now, and maybe we save that for another day and another podcast. I'd be happy to go into a little bit more detail around it. It's I look back on it and it's like, oh, well, that was pretty simple, but there were some struggles along the way to kind of get to that point. But again, you have to keep saying, I think we could do this. Find colleagues and peers, or even people outside your organization, and say, what do you think of this idea? Like, I'm stuck on this thing. There is somebody out there that has is thinking about the same problem, or they have already solved it. And then think about using these AI tools as your assistant. We talk about like, okay, we need to trust but verify. So this does not mean we're turning all of our work over to AI. What
Right.
we want to do, though, is we want the business to run to the best of our ability. We want the customers to be most satisfied. We want our financial and other operational goals to be met. And we want this business to be here for a long time. And Husco, I didn't really get a chance to explain the company. We've got a business unit for automotive and a business unit for construction and off highway. But our third piece of the puzzle is we are very focused on education in the community.
Mhm.
And so Husco has built and sponsored a school here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, called St. Augustine Prep. And so I'm pitching a little commercial here for Aug Prep and the amazing job that group does. A K through 12 school with 2,300 students in it, and it's one of
Amazing.
the top performing schools here in the state of Wisconsin. And so now we're talking about how do we teach the next generation AI? What can it do for them?
We might have to have it because we've done pilots with kids too. So I we might have to have a separate conversation about that because that's absolutely phenomenal. And also the fact that your company is supporting like that next generation of learning. And for them to hear from you, right, as an adult, as a leader in their community, that like, hey, I was a little apprehensive too, but guess what I did? And these are the struggles that I faced, but I was able to walk through them and to have again, a program or the other tools to be able to support you through that. Giving that back to the next generation is just absolutely phenomenal. So thank you so much for doing that as well.
Yeah, no problem. One maybe one tip or one suggestion is people are listening, especially people that have just not started yet. It's I think that first step to go from 0 to 1 is really hard,
Yeah.
right? I don't know anything. I've never tried it. I don't have this app. I've never gone to an AI website. Choose one of the tools. Choose Copilot, Chat GPT, Gemini is baked into a Google search function now. Take one of them and try to apply it to your personal life, even before you get to business.
I
And
love
the
that.
example that I give to people is 1 year ago, I wanted to build my first garden. I had never gardened before in my life. I didn't know anything about vegetables and flowers and fruits. And so I've now had about a 9 month running discussion with my garden coach on ChatGPT, and we're already started. I am starting to plan out 2026, and it did phenomenal. I made my own dirt. I grew probably 10 different vegetables. I had all these wildflowers, and it was spectacular. And it was fantastic. It would have been like hiring a gardening coach
Yeah.
who stood in my backyard all summer long and said, "Do this and do that and look at this and think about this for next year." It was fascinating. So I would ask people to think about that, whether it's health and fitness, travel, other educational opportunities. Think about how it can make your personal life better and bring some of those hard challenges to it.
That's such a good advice for getting started. Kind of start with something that feels a little bit more personal, feels a little bit easier in a sense, right? Or something maybe you're really excited to do, but just didn't know how, versus that space of apprehension and needing to move into some spaces. Because you're exactly right. Like at the end of the day, these products and these tools are able to kind of coach us through things that previously you would need an expert, an industry expert, or someone to come to your space and show you, landscape architect to come out and say, hey, here's where you need to do this. And that's expensive. It isn't, not everybody has access to those kinds of things. So this really does level the playing field across so many spaces. And for me, I'm not great at planning travel. It's like
Mm.
I like to travel, but the planning side of it to me feels very overwhelming most of the time. So I started using it with that, like, hey, ChatGPT, can you give me an itinerary for? And honestly, I started my own city because I was like, I just want to see what it would tell me to do here, which I can then kind of like validate whether those are good things or not good things according to the things that I enjoy doing. And so, and then I branched out into other spaces. So similar to you, I tried to start it that way and then have, grown from there. But there's obviously a plethora of more things that we could do with it as we continue to learn and grow.
Yeah, and think about the efficiency gains you'll have in the future. It will start to understand your preferences, and the next trip is going to be that much easier. Or then you'll
That's
put
so
in,
true.
I like to do these activities. I like this kind of food. I like this sort of music venue. And then 1 year from now, as you're planning your next trip, it's going to say, "Oh, I know you like classical music. Why don't you look at these three things?"
Yes, I didn't even think
when you
about
ask for
that.
suggestions, right? So it's going to help you adapt, and it's going to actually make that trip more fun to plan because you've already coded in some of your preferences. And so that's a really and we're finding that in the settings in these tools, just putting your personal preferences, who you are and what you're expecting, I think is a really big step forward because you don't have to recode that in every time. It will know who Anne is and your list of preferences.
Yeah, that is such a, I didn't even think about that, honestly. I was thinking about it more discreetly of kind of like each trip, but you're absolutely right. Each trip it will learn. And then probably after I do a trip, I should let it know what I thought about its recommendations and we'll learn even more. So thank you for teaching me something new. I appreciate that very much.
No
Um,
problem.
well, kind of as we wrap up, again, thank you so much for both your time and your energy and all the insights and expertise that you have brought to the table. If there was kind of like one message, I feel like what you previously said was maybe it, but just in case there's anything else, if there was one message that you could kind of share with our audience, what would that be?
You know, I think uh, the benefit of the Gen AI for Leader Skills course allows you to kind of like pull back the veil on this view of what AI is, and that it's some kind of special system and software that's only for a certain type of people. And I think let me maybe restate that. I think that AI is for everybody, and I think it is another tool in your toolkit, just like anything else you use to, make it through your day and make your organization better. And I think as a leader, we have to be the ones to take that first step and try and be okay with prototyping something, be okay with failing at something. And I think that's an important message, especially for this next generation of the workforce, is it's okay to fail. It's okay to try something new, test it out, and it doesn't work. Then the question is, what is the next step after that? And I think these AI tools can help us do those next steps faster. So yes, the prototyping might not go exactly the way you want, but I think it will probably help you generate new ideas and bring, that innovation word is thrown around a lot, but bring, true innovation to your organization. Starting small, but also thinking about big problems that need to be solved out there.
I love that. And you're absolutely right in terms of AI being for everybody, but letting yourself feel from a mindset perspective that it's okay to put something in, see where it goes, whether it's successful or not successful, simply using that as information for a next step versus kind of, date myself, but back in the years like where you kind of like, oh, I failed, I should stop. I shouldn't do that anymore. It's no, it's just one other iteration. It's one other data point for how do we move forward. And if you think about it from another perspective, it's similar to going back to the tools that you mentioned, 25 plus years ago when the website, like websites didn't exist. And
Mm.
the internet, right, got brought into all of these things. And it was one of those things where we were able to then use that as a tool. But at the very beginning, we had to learn how to do that too. And so this is just kind of like that level of knowledge, but also teaching ourselves something new and not being afraid to really try it out and see where it goes.
That's a great point. The website example, the internet example. I mean, think about e-commerce. Think about
Exactly.
the last time you picked up a physical map, right? Those things have just become part of our daily life, and so I think this is going to go in that same direction. And there's lots of different ways that it can go, and there's so many different tools and softwares out there that are being developed every day. But I would pick one or two and start with those, and then really focus on what is the problem to be solved. Starting simple, breaking that problem down, and I think there's lots of opportunities to apply it today. But in the future, who knows where it can take us? I hope it helps the world solve some of our greatest problems that we have today.
Oh, thank you, Pat. I could talk to you for so long, but I know I would need to be respectful of your time. Just thank you so much for all of your insights and your expertise. We're really looking forward to continue, hopefully, working with Husco at Generator across multiple programs. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.